Hi guys, hi everybody. My name is Ivonne Martinez. I am from Trio ETS at Boise State. We're going to be starting this awesome podcast and be inviting a few school representatives and students. Along with me hosting this podcast will be Gloria Segura. And today we have Chewy, which is another specialist with us, and we have Daisy from UI and Javier Garcia from CWI. So today we're just going to do a quick introduction, get to know us, some of our background, what our college experience was, what high schools we went to. I know a few of us went to some local high schools. So out of all of us, I think we all went to, actually, I think you three went to Caldwell High School. Is that right? You, Gloria, Javier, and Daisy, not Chewy.
You made that very obvious.
Javier and I.
No, I think Daisy was from Homedale, right?
That's close enough.
She's the proud Trojan, right? Is that the mascot?
That's the mascot.
I want to say that I saw some cheerleader pictures of you. Were you a cheerleader in high
I
school?
was a cheerleader when
You
I was
were?
Oh, look at her, yeah.
I never saw these cheerleading.
Yeah, extracurricular activities.
So for all of our podcast, regulars and fans, if anyone can unearth some old videos of Daisy cheerleading, that'd be great. I'd want to see that.
We will have an award for you guys.
Yes,
I like it.
For sure. Other than cheerleading, what else did you do?
I played soccer. I was in FHLA. I was I was on the state board as the coordinator for FHLA for obviously like a year and a half, I want to say. As an honor society. I'm trying to think of all the things I did while I was in high school. I feel like it's been so long. It's kind of hard to remember everything.
Way to give your age away, yeah.
Like kind of pretty young still. But yeah, I think those are like the main sports I did. I mean, if you want to consider cheerleading a sport, I kind of did. It was a lot of working out, so for sure. But yeah, and I did soccer for 3 years. So I loved soccer when I was in high school.
What'd you play?
I played center.
Center.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else play soccer? No. Any other sports?
I think we're getting shamed here for not being athletic. Jeez. No, funny story for me. I tried cross country, and I ended up getting swollen feet. I found I had flat feet, and I had to learn how to run right and get shoes that were like special for it. So that was my shot at doing sports.
You tried it. That's important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just like my life. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now you know he wears special shoes.
Yes.
I actually never bought the special shoes, but it's fine.
No.
I can walk okay.
Or I have this special condition that it doesn't allow me to run.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
It's like at least you have an excuse. I just didn't do sports just because.
Well, I'm not going to say that I have like full motivation to continue because I could have done all that to do it, but I didn't. So totes good.
So what did you do in high school, Javi?
So in high school, I was in yearbook club so I helped with like taking pictures. I was at events. I joined something called the Mayor's Youth Advisory. So it was like students worked with students from Bellevue and Caldwell who like met with the mayor and did like cool events. I remember they were kind of introducing us to things we may not be familiar with. So I remember like doing like a golf event, and we did some kind of project together to better like the community, things like that. I was in a lot of like the AP classes. I was part of AVID. We had it for a little bit at Caldwell and then it left. And I did have trio support while I was in high school. And then I always had a job, so I worked. So I remember I started off at Taco Time. It was probably like my first job. And I ended up being there for about a year, and then Target was coming up, I might be aging myself because people can Google when the Target came up. When it was first coming up, they had a job fair at Nampa High School or somewhere, and I went with a friend, and I ended up getting a job. So then I worked at Target for about 2 years, all through probably junior year through like when I graduated. And so I did that. Yeah, I was pretty busy, I guess, with work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I should have mentioned that too. I was in Trio when I was in high school. I was a Trio ambassador and everything. So I felt really cool when I was in high school because I was a Trio ambassador.
I think I did that also, and then I was also like a Trio. What is it? Like a Trio tutor or something like that. There's some kind of program where you can like tutor people, and I was excited for that.
Was that at U of I, or was that in the high school?
In the high school, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was in high school, yeah. And my Trio rep was Julie Boo. I remember.
Okay.
Yeah. Funny story. So Javier and I actually went to a California trip with Trio together, and we didn't even know each other.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, he was a senior and I went as a junior, and we did not even realize it until we started talking about like Trio. And then he was like, yeah, I went on this trip. And I was like, I was on that trip. Like, it's so weird how we just like never put two and two together until like we started talking, obviously, like when we were in college already.
Yeah, that was actually like my first trip, not out of state, but like away from my parents. So I remember feeling like super like homesick, and I was in I had a lot of culture shock. So we were in like some bigger cities with just, a lot of different people, and it was definitely a new experience, but I remember feeling so like homesick that trip. Like I was ready to go back, and it wasn't even a long trip.
Gloria, did you go to that trip?
I did not, because in high school I was actually in the Trio Upper Bound program. So I was in that. I was also like in the Spanish club, FHLA, and I also worked. Yeah. I worked at the Golden Corral.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. I was in the salad area. I was making all this dressing.
Wait, you make the dressings, or did you just pour them?
No, we actually make them.
Really?
Well,
Gloria was all more so.
I was like,
tasting all the ranch.
I will not eat ranch because I realized like all the stuff that they actually put in there, and I'm like, I can't. Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought about how ranch is made or what's in it.
There's a lot of mayonnaise.
Just mayo.
Yeah.
Is it really?
It's mayo, depending on how you make it, but it's basically mayo, some sort of milk base, so buttercream or just some type of milk, and then the flavor packets.
Oh, the more you know. Sounds like Chewy's made ranch in his days.
I did a lot of ranch. Because I also worked at a restaurant. I worked at a restaurant for 5 years, and we would make the ranch. And it was a gallon of mayo, half a gallon of milk, and ranch flavoring. And that was it.
Add that to your special skills in your resume.
Special skills. Yep. So when people read my resume, it's just right up there in the corner.
Chewy, did you work while in school too, or was this?
Yeah, so in high school, so when I started high school, I worked just like at a farm. Could only work a few hours a day. So I would only work it was 2 hours at a farm. But then I got a job at a restaurant, which was it was a Mexican restaurant, right? But I ended up working there.
Yeah, what is
Well,
are we talking like Taco Bell?
It was like if you consider Taco Bell a Mexican restaurant, it was kind of the same thing, but it was a sit down place though. It was called El Sol Mexican Restaurant.
I have this idea about Mexican restaurants. Like if they over decorate the inside, they're trying too hard.
That's exactly what it was like.
Okay, cool. Say no more.
It's exactly what it was like. Everything was made of like brick, supposedly, and super colorful, and yeah. But no, I ended up working there for the rest of high school, and then I worked there 2 years into college. So I ended up working there for 5 years. So I very much made a lot of ranch and a lot of other really gross stuff.
Along with working, did you do any clubs or organizations in high school?
I wasn't as involved in high school as I probably should have. The most I was involved with, so I was involved with the multicultural club, but the school decided to kind of like defund it because each club, if it was a legitimate club, would get so much money a year to do like their activities and stuff. But then, I don't know, I guess they decided that the multicultural club wasn't legitimate because we wouldn't do as many like big events or something like that. So they cut our funding and
was that
yeah, that was in high school. Yeah. So, I mean, the funding was only like, I think you'd get like $100 a year or something like that. So it's not like it was a lot, but, you know, for us, like that was money that we didn't have to come up with ourselves. We didn't have to do fundraising or anything like that. So in the club, we didn't really do very multicultural things. Like we would just meet once a week and like play Monopoly or something. And that was it. And it would be after school. But it was
so it was like board game club.
Kind of. I mean, honestly, it's just whatever would be that day. So we'd play Monopoly or, you know, have like a drawing contest or just random things that we'd come up with. So at least we'd stay busy. But it was through the club that I found out about Gear Up. So it kind of worked out, I guess, because then I got into the Gear Up program and I was doing that 3 times a week. So yeah, that was mostly what I was involved with, though. I wasn't involved with extracurriculars. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of like involvement in high school. I feel like it was just because I feel like I didn't have the motivation to do it. And after like the multicultural club got defunded, I felt like, well, then what's the point? Like, I don't know. I felt like it wasn't valued. And so then I felt like I was like, oh, well, I guess I don't care. So I just didn't do anything for the school.
You taught them.
Yeah. And funny enough, I went to a high school called Skyview, which there's a Skyview here. So except they're mascots, the Bobcats, and I think the ones here is the Hawks, right? Skyview Hawks.
Now, for those of you that did extracurricular, do you think that helped you later on when applying to colleges?
I guess I didn't realize like how important it was to be part of something. Well, like at the beginning of high school, like I remember I wasn't allowed to do like a lot of activities because I needed to get home and to take care of my younger siblings, because at the time my parents were working like sometimes 6 to 8 in the clock in the night. So like I had to be home. And but slowly, like as I like went through the years in high school, my mom's like, she was able to stay home, and so I was able to do more activities. But when I got to like my senior year and I started doing applications, there's that little section where it says list all your extracurricular activities, any like athletics that you've been involved in. And I was like, I didn't get to do a lot. So like I was that senior that I tried to join some things as much as I could or be part of something so I can put that on there. So, and I guess like in college, it kind of changed. I was more involved. I had more time for myself.
Yeah. I think for me, like it was really, really helpful just because I think no one in my family had gone to college. I mean, I had so many older cousins that like graduated before me and they were never involved in anything. And so like my older sister, she started getting involved with FHLA the year that she was a sophomore. It was like the year that they created FHLA in Homedale. And so I kind of already knew that would be something that I would join just because I saw like how active she was within the organization. And then obviously knowing like, you know, having or being part of TRIO when I was a freshman, I already knew like these are the things that are going to help me get into college. So like with that in mind, I was like, okay, like I need to take my time and like learn about things that like I might actually like sports. But it literally was like the best thing because when it came time to ask for recommendation letters, like all of my teachers knew who I was. Like, again, like I ran for like state board for FHLA. And so like those kind of things helped getting those recommendation letters. Yeah. And I like to Gloria's point, like I was able to actually add that in that section. Like, you know, I had experience with like how to word things because I think sometimes even students that do have to stay home and babysit, like if you babysit for your tios or your tias or whatever, you're babysitting your cousins, like that's, showing that they trust you enough that they know you're responsible to leave their kids with you. So I think those are even things that you can add on those applications. So, I mean, for me, when it came time to, ask for scholarship recommendations, things like that, like it ended up being really, really good. So I did appreciate, taking the time to do sports and extracurricular stuff.
So, Chewy, since you didn't do as many extracurricular, do you think that influenced where you went to in high school or how you got scholarships? I mean, you were still involved with Gear Up and you were working, but not having some of the extracurricular activities to put on resumes and scholarship applications. How did that go for you?
Yeah. No, I think it definitely influenced my choice just because like having extracurriculars, having like all these responsibilities, I think it's not necessarily just something to put on your resume, but those are skills that you learn, right? If you have a bunch of extracurriculars, you're forced to learn time management, which time management's not something that you learn in high school. Like they don't tell you how to effectively manage your time, and how to prioritize everything, right? You learn that because it's like, oh, you have so much homework, you have to do this and that. But other than that, like they don't focus on it. And if you have extracurriculars, if you have all these things that you're doing, if you have a job, if you're taking care of siblings, anything like that, you're forced to learn time management, whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously, like you're doing it though. And for me, since I didn't have all of that, I felt like my choices were very limited. I love the school that I went to. Like I really enjoyed going to Utah State, but I felt like my choices were kind of just down to that, right? Like I knew that there were other schools through the Gear Up program, and I knew that, it would take a lot of effort to get into them. But for me, I was like, well, like I can barely even do what I'm doing now. Like, how am I going to get into this other school? I was looking at other schools, but I was like, well, it's a lot of money. It's going to take a lot to just move this and that. And I mean, a lot of other factors went into it, but to kind of prove this point, it was just, to me, I was like, well, I don't do anything, right? Like I'm not going to be getting like a sports scholarship. I'm not like super great at math, or I'm not like this and that. And so to me, I felt like it did factor, just because for me, it made it seem like I don't have experience, so I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like things would have changed if I maybe would have done other clubs, even if it was just like the social clubs, right? Because even those take, time from your day. So
did that change in college? Did you become more involved?
Yeah, I feel like I probably got too involved.
You made up for it?
Yeah. I started getting really involved, and it wasn't that like it's not like I added a bunch of clubs or into my schedule or anything. It's just that like I dedicated a lot of time to certain things, specifically like clubs that I did join. And I got into some internships pretty early on, just because I was really dedicated with my time on them. And so once I got into college, like I found everything that I could do and that I wanted to do, that I knew I was going to enjoy. And I like dedicated a lot of time. Right. And so like one example is at Utah State there, it used to be called the Access and Diversity Center. Now they changed the names, but essentially it was a diversity center that you could go to and get help for students that look like me, that essentially look like us. Right. I got super involved. I pretty much went to every single event that they had my freshman year. And then by the following year, I applied for one of the positions of the Latino Student Union. And then from there, I got super into it. And then I got an internship with the office itself that was running all the clubs. And then from there, I got an internship with, so they also had a Gear Up program. And so I was able to travel around the state. And so like, I feel like aside from my studies and everything, I just dedicated any other hour of the day that I could. I was basically just on campus doing stuff with the office that I was working with, just because I wanted to be as involved as possible. And it ended up working out because with every little experience that I was getting, every bit of experience, I was able to move up and keep going. I was moving up the ladder every year. And so, yeah, it was pretty much like that was my life. Was I went to class and then I spent pretty much the rest of the day just in those offices.
Yeah. I think I was the same way. I got very involved in the new student office at my school, and I got involved in everything, and it was mostly how I ended up getting a job right after college. So that definitely helped me. And I know, I think all three of you did participate in other programs and organizations at U of I, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Javi and Daisy went to U of I, and then
Yes.
Gloria, LCSC, Chewy,
Utah State.
State. Perfect.
And you, Ivonne?
And I'm the only Boise State person.
No, but you went to other two schools too.
I did go to other two schools. I did go to, right out of high school, I went to the College of Southern Idaho. CWI was still, I think it was coming up. It was just starting when I went to college, so I didn't get the opportunity to. Well, I think the application might have been out. I think it was their first year, but we weren't very familiar with that school. So I went to CSI, and then after graduating there, I took what I call my year off, which wasn't really a year off, but I went to University of New Mexico, and then came back and finished at Boise State. What other extracurricular activities, or were you involved in anything in college?
I got really, I really got involved in OELA, which is kind of like FHLA, but it's college like level. And
Do you know what that stands for?
Organización de Estudiantes Latinoamericanos. And then I also got involved like with the TRIO Student Support Services. I just started going there, and then they had a position open for like their admin. So like I was kind of like a work study, like an assistant of the admin. So I did that throughout like like all my years in college. I worked there, and then I got the opportunity to be part of like the president's committee for diversity. So for a year, so that was interesting too.
Javi?
Yes, I got to go to U of I through the camp program, the college assistant migrant program. And it was kind of there that I kind of just, felt more comfortable with looking out for new groups and running for like leadership positions. So camp has a student run organization called Campus, and I like ran and became president. And that was kind of like my first year getting involved. We did have Aguilera, so I helped out with that also. And then U of I has a strong Greek community. So I knew I wanted to go Greek. But I was exposed to Latino Greeks. And so like culturally based fraternities and sororities, and, through kind of just learning, I joined. I decided to join. I became interested and joined a Latino fraternity. So there's like a lot of ways that just being involved helped me kind of just develop as a leader, because everything that I did in clubs, I used that as actual experience. And I applied that in when I started looking for jobs. And so I could say, yeah, I've been able to do all these things through these event planning, through recruitment, through presenting to, potential members, things like that. And I was lucky enough to be able to travel thanks to my involvement in the group. So the school pays you to go to conferences to develop you as a leader. And so I was able to go to Washington, D.C., to some other places, and it was really fun. So I do contribute a lot of my and definitely success on campus to just being involved, and I think that I made a lot of best friends, and I still have good friends just through those involvements, and so that's been invaluable to me for sure. in how I was able to develop. So the one thing that I do think, and we've all talked about it, is that we became too over-involved. That did affect classes sometimes, because I, put priority into being at the event or getting stuff done or things like that. And so I was able to develop time management in that way. And then have y'all noticed, it's probably like the case for your schools, that you being the involved person at the school working with your office, you were always called to kind of represent like diversity committees, or maybe you were asked to represent the diverse picture at school where they sat you in the front lawn with your multicultural friends and then someone took a picture, right? And it was the picture there for the next 2 years. I found myself being involved in things like that pretty often. I think once I got a little bit into my, upperclassmen years, that it was like, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. And I was I started to choose a little bit better about like what I was involved with. Because it was definitely overwhelming to just be as involved as I was, to balance school, to still have a job, but then also to take on those additional responsibilities. So I totally get it. Gloria, when you're like, as part of the president's, Inclusive Excellence Diversity Committee, totally get that. I was in that also.
What did you do in there? You just kind of sat there?
Right. So then me and my multicultural other friends would sit together and talk about like just initiatives we wanted to overtake. And I guess the frustrating part was that we would get to work and we would have some good initiatives or ideas, but as new presidents changed, and during my time as an undergrad, there was a lot of presidential changes at U of I, then you would have to kind of just restart the work because new leadership has new ideas, and so we'd have to just realign with those. And so that is definitely interesting from a student perspective, for sure.
Yeah. I do think, at least in my experience, being involved in college made it a lot more enjoyable. I know we have, and from what I've seen, it does help with student retention. The more involved you are, the more you're willing to stay and finish off your degrees at those schools. When I went to Boise State, I was not involved in anything. I was just basically going to my classes and finishing off the classes that I had left. But I wasn't as involved. I didn't join any clubs or organizations. I was just going home, work, school, versus when I was at CSI, I was involved in every other club and organization. So I enjoyed my time more at CSI than I did at Boise State. I wanted to be on campus. I wanted to come back the following year. Is that similar? Did you guys have similar experience?
Yeah, I think like when I was a senior, I got to go up to, my trio rep encouraged me to go up to U of I because I'd never considered U of I as an option, just because I was like, oh, it's so far. And like originally I had already convinced all my group of friends, like we're all going to Boise State, we're going to join camp there, so that was like our idea. But, he was just kind of like, don't close yourself to options, like, especially because I wanted to study business. And that was the one program that was really big, not only at Boise State, but also at U of I. So he was like, I think you should take like the trip and just check it out. If you don't like it, then that's fine. But at least, take the trip. And I ended up going up for this program called Vandal Challenge that U of I hosts. And it's actually done by OELA up at U of I. And so when I went up there, during that Vandal Challenge program, you get to see all of like the multicultural Greeks. You get to, you're introduced to different organizations on campus. And so at that point, I think after seeing the campus, that's when I like kind of changed my mind about going to Boise State and coming up to U of I. But I knew that it was going to be like a really tough decision because again, I knew I was going up there not knowing anyone. And so that was kind of tough. And so like, obviously like my first week, at U of I was like really homesick and not sure whether I made the right decision to come to U of I because, I would see like my friends back in the day it was like MySpace. And they would Can
you explain MySpace too?
What is that? Yeah.
It's our version of Facebook back in the day. So I mean, like, it just sucked, seeing them like all together, and I'm over here by myself. And so because when I came up for Vandal Challenge, I had met this girl named Viri Artiaga, and she was the president for Abuela the year that I went up to Vandal Challenge. And so, like, I love that she was so involved, and like she had so many connections on campus, and I felt like that's what I want to do. Like, you know, I've been like so proactive when I was in high school. Like, I want to continue like my leadership experience at U of I, knowing that, you know, this type of leadership is what's going to help me when I graduate and I start looking for jobs or internships. And so I joined Abuela when I got to U of I, and I was also part of the camp program there as well. And much like Javier, that's how kind of I was introduced to the Greek community, and I joined a sorority as well. But I love that, you know, being part of that sorority also helped me leave Idaho and visit different parts, because it's part of our, you know, our organization. You know, we get to meet with other chapters within the state of Idaho and Washington. So it was kind of nice to like be able to travel and connect with other people, and like essentially build like a network of friends everywhere you go. And so like I think that was also really helpful for me as I was like growing as a student and learning to like make time, and, you know, like making sure that the things that I was involved, like Javier said, is like, you know, give priority to things that you really love. Because I did intramural sports while I was in Moscow too. I did soccer, and I mean, obviously we weren't the greatest, so I very quickly left the sport. But I mean, I think as you start getting involved with organizations, like it helps you because you, number one, you build so many friends, all with the same common interest, which is to graduate. For a lot of us, we were the first ones in our family. So like just experiencing that, knowing that you're all kind of experiencing the same thing of feeling homesick, and still kind of like questioning yourself. Cause I think at that point, a lot of us like have that like whole imposter syndrome. Like, don't know, like, am I good enough to be here? Like, am I going to be able to like maintain my grades, to keep me here and get scholarships? But I think when you build that network of friends, and you get involved with like your student services, like, I think that's what helps you stay at your university and really love your time there. Because I think, those are some of the things that sometimes I felt like I didn't need when I was in high school. Like I didn't feel like I needed tutoring. I was pretty well off in high school, but college is so different because you're starting to get into a program that's very specific to what you're interested in. And so obviously classes start like slowly increasing, in different as you get closer to graduating. So, I mean, yeah, once I started getting into my junior, senior year, I did maybe cut back a little bit in my involvement with student organizations to make sure that I was focusing on meeting the requirements for graduation as well. So
yeah, those are some really great points. And I believe we're all first generation college students, which
what is first generation?
At least in our as a trio definition, it means you don't have any parents that have gone off to college and have a 4-year degree. So they've gone off to U of I and completed their bachelor's degree or higher. So you don't have anyone to show you the way and give you some tips and give you advice on that. So along with that, my family is really tight. My parents never went anywhere. When we moved here to Idaho, the whole family moved to Idaho, you know? So our family is very tight. So for me to leave even 2 hours away with none of my family, being involved really helped me not be homesick. I built my own little family up there in college. So I guess that is one of the other benefits of getting involved, and one of the reasons why you do end up staying there is because you build your own, in essence, your own familia, your own family up there.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that, especially for, for students that are very motivated and want to get to college, but they're concerned, everything that you're feeling is totally normal and right. I have to share that when I was making my decision about where to go, I saw a picture and I saw U campus and I thought, wow, that place is beautiful. It looks cool. I definitely want to go there. I did all the things I had to do. I applied to scholarships. I got support from Trio. I feel like I had done all I could do to make sure that if going to college was what I wanted to do, that I would get there. But the reality is sometimes that you don't have the money, that it's not enough sometimes, and you have to make other plans. And so for me, I was lucky enough to catch a spot in the camp program so last minute. I literally found out I was going to U of I 2 days before school started at U of I. I was already registered to go to classes at BSU, right? Because I had enough money from scholarships to go there without like getting in debt. I went up to U of I. I was homesick. My mom and dad found out I was going to U of I 2 days before it opened. And they agreed to drive me. My mom cried the whole way up, and she tried to convince me too that I should, that it was okay to change my mind. They literally left all my stuff in my dorm, and then they took off. Like, they couldn't even stay that long because mom and dad had to work, right? And some of our families, they need to work or the bills don't get paid. So that was my reality. And so all that, like, worrying about all those things, like, that's totally real. But I think if I would recommend anything to anyone, is like, push yourself through that discomfort, because it's totally at the end, whatever you choose to do. And if your plan doesn't work out where you get to go to your dream school, like, go somewhere else for a little bit until you can. There is a lot of opportunity for transfer options. There is, if you want to get somewhere, you really can get there. You just need to start asking a lot of people a lot of questions, including us. You know what I mean? And we can connect you to the right people. It was through Julie. I was going to call her Booley. Julie, that she knew about that program, that there had been that opening. I wanted U of I. So she called me right away, and she told me, and I, did the paperwork, and suddenly I was in. It's through our connections with the people that we know that we get these opportunities sometimes. And I mean, if one of my students tells me I want to go to U of I, or I want to go somewhere else after CWI, when I help them, I'm like, I can connect you with the right people. And I know that as soon as opportunities arise, and if this is what you want, we most likely will find something for you to be able to get there. If not, we'll look at all the options. And I think that's very important and very powerful. I'm going to share my I cried in college story really fast. So
I have many of those.
Yeah. I have the one I will admit to. So when I would say I'd been like a month or two into U of I. I had just, got to meet new friends. I connected with some high school friends that were in the Greek system. And so I remember inviting some people to Bob's because I had free lunch pass. And we were coming out of just eating probably around dinner time. And my little brother and sister were like maybe 5 or 6, like really young. So I walk out, I get a phone call from my little brother, and I pick up the call. And he's like, Javi, how are you doing? And, he has his little kid voice. Now he's an adult. He's married. He has a kid. And he was like, Javi, when are you coming back? And then he starts crying. And I didn't realize I had my phone on speaker. So I'm like choking up because, it's my little brother and I'm already homesick. I'm holding back my tears, and I turn around and all my friends are already crying. So we all started. We hugged each other, like right there outside of Bob's as people walked. But it's just, I think that's just an testament to like everybody feels the same way. And like when you embark on a journey like that, for yourself it's actually for your family, because that's one of the things that we don't talk about. Like you doing this, you going to college for the very first one in your family, that has a lot of people behind you to keep going on, right? And I was at an NCORE conference a couple years ago, and one of the speakers said, it's not enough to break barriers and open the door for yourself. It's your responsibility to keep that door open for everyone else behind you. That really spoke to me. Like, if the work that we're doing right now isn't that, like it's like what we're living. It's what we're all doing to help like our communities. And we all here, do we all identify as Latino? Probably. Yes. Okay. So we might all be Latino or identify as Latino, but it's really about everybody who's first gen, who isn't, who doesn't have resources. We're here to support everybody. And I think by sharing our stories, although they may not be similar or exact identical to what anyone else is experiencing, hopefully they can take a little bit from what we're sharing to just kind of, see themselves in us and see themselves being able to do this. And I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
Chewy, what was your experience? How far did you go from home?
About 7 miles.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's always funny because I'm like always encouraging students to go to the school that they want, even if it's far away. And then and then they ask me, where did you go to school? I was like, well, I went to Utah State, which was, 7 miles from my house. Like it was like a 10-minute drive for me. But I mean, yeah, I didn't have all these experiences of moving away from home and whatnot, but to me, it's still important, right, to do this, because I mean, everything that Javi just said is it's spot on, right? He mentioned something about like his own comfort zone, right? He was completely out of his comfort zone when he was getting, dropped off. His parents had to go back home. It was just, a quick despedida, like, here you go, you're in college, we got to go back to work. And so it's like you're thinking about your own comfort zone, about how, you're stepping out of it, you're getting dropped off at this school. And then it's also important to remember like your parents' comfort zone. It's something that, I mean, all of us can testify to, that you've had students that their parents just don't want to let them go, right? Their parents are like, you can't leave, like, you can't leave your family. You can't just leave. Like, what are we going to do? It's like, who's going to help around the house? Who's going to watch who's going to watch your siblings? Who's going to do this? And they think that you're leaving. They think that you're literally leaving them, that you're not just, going somewhere and going to come back. No, like that you're leaving the family. Like, yeah, you're not going to have to do anything with them. But much like Javi said, it's like you come back, right? It's like you might not physically go back to the family, but like what you're doing is for them. You're always doing everything with them in mind. And a lot of the times it's like, yeah, you're getting your degree and you're going to school for you, but you're kind of bringing your entire family with you, especially when you're first generation, right? It's like you're opening that door. And in the positions that we currently hold, it's like we are opening the door for other people, which sometimes includes siblings, cousins, someone from, your family. And even though like I wasn't in that position where I said like I left, I am the first person in my family to actually leave the state. So for me, being a first generation professional was a big deal because nobody in my family had ever left. Like all my siblings live within at least a 20-minute radius of each other over in Utah, right? So if they need help, if they want to go visit, it's just a car drive away. It's a short, 10, 15 minutes away. And that's it. And I moved away 4 hours, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's like, okay, 4 hours you can do in one day. But to like my parents, like that was a big deal. Like that was such a big deal. I was applying to jobs in other places too, in other states. And like, I specifically remember my dad was like, he came and talked to me. He's like, so like, how is the job search going? And I told him about like my frustrations, which I'm pretty sure we've all been there, not hearing back and waiting and weeks without hearing anything. So I was telling him my stuff and he's like, well, you should really think about just maybe finding a job here or like finding one that's a little bit closer. It's like, like we're like, what are we going to do when you're not around? Like how do you think your mom's going to feel when you leave? And to me, like that was really, it wasn't as helpful as he probably made it seem, right? He was trying to say like, I want you to stay, but he didn't just say like, I want you to stay because I want you around. Like he was like, throwing in some guilt. And like that was hurtful. That was, to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not thinking about them. I'm just being selfish and I'm doing this. And that's something that gets into students' minds at a very young age, right? It's like I hear students saying like, well, I'm going to stay here because my mom or my dad or my parents in general want me to stay. And so, yeah, like I said, I don't have that experience of moving away for college, but I definitely moved away for the job. And I mean, I graduated a little bit later. I graduated when I was 26. And so, like, even at 26, like, my parents were still guilting me to stay home. They were still guilting me and trying to tell me what to do. It's like being 18 in a Latino household means nothing, right? It doesn't matter how old you are. It's like you're still their kids. They're still kind of in charge type of way. And so it was really hard, but in the end, I had to do it for myself. And honestly, ever since I did it, like, my communication and my relationship with my parents has never been better, because I feel like, I mean, it might be just because they don't see me that often. So now anytime I go over, it's like they have to throw a party, but I've never had that before, right? I never had that type of treatment. I never felt like I was essentially loved, but it was there. It's just, it's not shown. And then it's just that cycle can continue, right? And so that's a cycle that I try to break with my students and let them know. But the thing is you can tell your students everything. You can tell that when we can have thousands of these stories, which there are millions of stories that are similar. But if we don't connect with the parents, because they're the ones that are kind of like that ultimate say, that's where it becomes difficult. So that's where I would say, like, my story kind of comes in, a little bit different, but again, it still has the same effect.
No, that's a great point. Family influence is huge, and especially for this first generation. It's not just a student that we're getting to college; it's a whole family that we're taking there. So we definitely take that into consideration. I think this is a great topic that we can definitely touch on, maybe on another session. But I know some of you have a few appointments coming up, so we're gonna go ahead and our first session here today. Thank you all for participating and contributing and telling us your stories. I know, I'm hoping, like Javier said, some of our stories do relate to our students, and they're able to see that there's others that gone through this. So thank you for being here, and hopefully you guys can make it all to the next session.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for having us. I feel like having something like this is great. I don't know, like, anybody except Chewy that has listened to a podcast like this before, but I think it's very powerful for students to like learn from people that have, quote, maybe they feel like have made it. You know, we're still adulting, we're still figuring stuff out, but to see people like in a spot where they don't see themselves yet, I think it's so powerful to be able to share things like this. And so thank you for having it. And also, if you invite us back, I'm happy to come back.
We'll see about that.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.